Hi there, I'm Phil, and welcome to another of my story analysis videos, where I take a look at a film in terms of its story structure, character arcs, and themes. Today, we're looking at Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris.
Make sure you've seen the film.
Ferris.
Spoilers ahead.
Ferris?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off was written, co-produced and directed by John Hughes, starring Matthew Broderick, Alan Ruck, and Mia Sara. It doesn't exactly follow a three-act structure, but it's kind of there. It has a first act, it has a very brief third act, but there's no strong midpoint. Most of the film, the middle section, that Act 2 section, plays like a road movie almost. And as John Hughes has said,
I think people are more interesting than plot.
How could I possibly be expected to handle school on a day like this?
My movies aren't so much what happens, it's how it happens.
The inciting incident is, of course, when Ferris convinces his parents that he should stay home sick.
They bought it.
To the annoyance of his sister, who knows he's faking it.
I can't believe this. If I was bleeding out my eyes, you guys would make me go to school. This is so unfair.
And the rest of Act 1 is basically convincing the principal that he's sick.
Ferris Bueller's online too.
And gathering his friends Cameron and Sloane, his girlfriend, so they can spend the day in Chicago.
If anybody needs a day off, it's Cameron. He has a lot of things to sort out before he graduates.
Oh, Sloane, dear. Hurry along now.
The first act's turning point is when they take the Ferrari.
Come on, love a little.
This is because the car is pivotal to Cameron's relationship with his father, and that is actually the central crisis of the film.
Ferris, my father loves this car more than life itself.
A man with priorities so far out of whack doesn't deserve such a fine automobile.
So one twist with this film is that Ferris Bueller is our central character, but he's not our protagonist. He's what I call a catalyst character. The film revolves around him and his actions. His name's in the title, after all. But Ferris Bueller doesn't have an arc. Ferris Bueller is also an iconic character, meaning he's already his fully realized self. He doesn't need to grow and change, at least not in the context of this story. Despite the fact that he's, 18 years old, he's already a very mature, very self-aware person. He knows what he wants. He knows that for him, certainly on this day, going to school is a waste of time.
This is my 9th sick day this semester. It's getting pretty tough coming up with new illnesses.
And there is, of course, a larger mission behind this day off for Ferris. The character in particular who grows and changes, who is arguably the real protagonist of this film, is Cameron.
It's that difference in us that makes us friends in a lot of ways, because as uptight as he is how loose I am.
So that first act turning point, when they take the car,
How about we run a nice Cadillac? My treat!
is a crisis for Cameron, but he lets Ferris do it because it's Ferris after all. Ferris gets whatever he wants. Ferris is like a force of nature in this film.
Ferris is like a free spirit.
People try to stop him, the sister and the principal in particular.
Because Ferris Bueller is such a successful little bugger. He gets away with all of this stuff.
They try to undo him, but they have their own arcs, which are basically the same arc, which is, no one can control Ferris Bueller, so just let it go. Let Ferris do Ferris, and you do you. The principal will not accept this.
He jeopardizes my ability to effectively govern this student body.
Well, makes you look like an ass is what he does, Ed.
He defies his authority, and the principal has, in a comic sense, a tragic end, because he doesn't get to unmask Ferris. Ferris, although he gets very close, at the end of the film, Ferris gets the upper hand, and the principal loses that battle. The sister, on the other hand, Jeannie, learns the lesson that the film is trying to teach her as a sub-protagonist, effectively, which is, let it go.
Hey! 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 What if you need a favor someday from Ferris Bueller? Then where'll you be, huh? You heartless wench!
Once they're on the road, once they arrive in Chicago, this is all Act 2. And the main point of this entire sequence is to present them with a series of obstacles that Ferris will overcome, and a series of adventures for Cameron's character in particular, as we find out later in the film.
If things don't change for him, he's gonna marry the first girl he lays. And she's gonna treat him like shit. She won't respect him. 'Cause you can't respect somebody who kisses your ass.
The whole point of this day was to give Cameron one last adventure to help him stand up for himself and to not be under the thumb of his own father quite so much. Now, Ferris expresses it in terms of going to college and marrying the wrong girl, but really it comes down to standing up to his father. And the car is a symbol of that.
We're not leaving the car here.
Why not?
It could get wrecked, stolen, scratched, breathed on wrong. A pigeon could shit on it.
The midpoint of the film, to the extent that we have one, actually doesn't come in the middle of the film, because John Hughes isn't really thinking structurally in that sense. He's thinking about character journeys.
It's not that kind of story. It is about who are these people, what are they like, and why are they acting the way they're acting. That's most interesting to me.
But the beat that could otherwise be called a midpoint is when they get the car back and it's okay. Yeah. But they realise there's hundreds of extra miles on the speedometer. And Cameron starts to freak out.
Cameron? Are you okay? Cameron?
But then we get our second act turning point moment soon after, which is when they return the car and Cameron has an epiphany.
I am not going to sit on my ass. As the events that affect me unfold to determine the course of my life, I'm going to take a stand.
And the crisis moment when Cameron accidentally pushes the car out the back of the garage. Once he does that, and once he makes a decision to confront his father and own up to it.
No. I'll take it. When Morris comes home, he and I'll just have a little chat.
That's Cameron's growth arc complete. Now, we don't get to see the conversation with the father, which would properly complete his arc, but that declaration by Cameron is enough for us to understand that he will do it. Now, interestingly, in the script, that scene reads rather differently. Close up, Mercedes bumper. Cameron's foot rests on the bumper. A beat and it gives a mighty shove. The spinning tyres slam down on the cement. Cameron has kicked the Ferrari off the jack. It squeals out of the garage in a cloud of blue tyre smoke. A $50,000 unmanned investment heading backwards down a driveway. Sloane and Ferris, they're in shock. The Ferrari shoots down the driveway. Cameron watches the car go. He's strangely placid about the impending disaster. Ferris and Sloane are bewildered. The Ferrari travels down the driveway, across the street, over the curb into the wooded property opposite the house. The Ferrari's brief journey ends as it smacks a tree trunk. Ferris and Sloane exchange baffled looks. They look at Cameron. He's proud and bold. Aside from the fact that the car isn't pushed out the back of the garage and end up in the forest, in the script it ends up careening down the street until it crashes into a tree. But that's the same beat, essentially. The car is wrecked. So the intention from Cameron in the script was very deliberate. He pushes the car down the hill on purpose, as a kind of act of revenge against his father. Whereas in the final film, it's an accident. Now, he does beat up the car.
Who do you love? Who do you love? You love a car. Bitch.
So he has done damage to the car, deliberately. But he didn't intend to destroy it completely. That is an accident. And that, I think, works better because now Cameron has to own up for having caused an accident that ultimately destroyed the car. There are other scenes in the film that are like this, where the actors have ad-libbed and improvised on top of what the script already provided. If you compared one-to-one the script with the finished film, there are lots of little changes within scenes that exist in the film.
The little things happen in the movie that were just stuff that Broderick and I made up.
Hey, so
You rehearse something and then you get some ideas and then John adds something and then it doesn't so much grow as it gets more specific and better.
But there are also scenes that don't exist in the film at all that are in the screenplay. Now, the script was written very quickly.
There was the threat of a writer's strike, and Ned Tannen came to John and said, I want you to make a movie for me, and I want you to make a movie right now. And if you don't write the script or turn it into me before this writer's strike might happen, which was like 3 weeks from then we won't be able to greenlight it. So John said, well, I have an idea, let me think about it. And he went home and 7 days later turned in Ferris Bueller.
So the script was written and it was one draft, essentially. A pretty good draft, but still a first draft. And because the writer is also the director, John Hughes, they were changing things as they went. He decided at some point to cut out the other brother and sister characters, Todd and Kimberly. And they appear in the opening scene, the scene that we don't actually get to see in the movie, just before Mum and Dad race up to Ferris's room. But there's a brief interchange here with Todd and Kimberly, with Kimberly saying his head's going to swell up. These two characters, Todd and Kimberly, keep coming back as a kind of running gag, but they were cut out of the film completely. There's also a scene in the screenplay where Ferris takes Cameron and Sloane to a strip club. This is meant to be part of Cameron's education as a young man, but Sloane, justifiably, she doesn't enjoy being there. Close up Cameron, Ferris and Sloane. They're sitting in a booth in the garish, nearly deserted strip joint. Cameron's mouth is open in amazement. Sloane is embarrassed and revolted. How does she do that? One goes one way, one goes the other. She's probably schizophrenic. Ferris, this is nauseating me. Really, I'm losing respect for you by the bucket. You don't think it's amazing that we got in? Who wants to get in? Cameron looks like a toddler, for Christ's sake. I'm talking about a major achievement in false identification. I'm not interested in watching someone jiggle their mammary glands. Point well taken. But consider why she does it. Why she does it and you don't. I'm not a tramp. That scene was justifiably cut from the film. I don't know if they even filmed it. That introduces a tension between Ferris and Sloane, the girlfriend. And it also introduces a scene where Ferris made a bad choice. And I think John Hughes wisely, once he got into production, understood a bit better, and once they'd cast Matthew Broderick in the role and Mia Sara as Sloane, etc., understood that, no, this guy is blessed. This guy, everything works out for. We are not going to have major problem stakes for this character. He does not have that life experience. And that is why we have that with Cameron. And the relationship between Ferris and Sloane is always portrayed as loving and kind and supportive. When he suggests they should marry...
You want to get married?
Sure.
Today?
He means it.
I was serious when I said I would marry her. I would.
I love you.
I love you too.
He's gonna marry me.
The other thing that helps this film enormously is that Matthew Broderick and Alan Ruck were already good friends before they were both cast in this film. They had been working on Broadway.
We worked together in
Biloxi Blues.
Right.
Oftentimes when you're in a movie and you have to play somebody's brother or husband or boyfriend or son or whatever, you have to sort of try to make this instant history. You try to, bond with whomever immediately. We didn't have to do that.
Everything we see in the film, Ferris either makes a choice that works out really well or is presented with a problem that he magically solves.
Is there a problem?
You're Abe Froman.
That's right. I'm Abe Froman.
The Sausage King of Chicago.
Yeah, that's me.
May I speak to Abe Froman?
The Sausage King of Chicago?
So Ferris really goes to places other people normally would not, and he gets away with it.
A, you can never go too far. B, if I'm gonna get busted, it is not gonna be by a guy like that.
One of the challenges with this film is that the central character of Ferris Bueller is a bit of a dick. As written. He's selfish, seemingly, until we get to the end of the film. He always gets his way, so he never has to deal with consequences, really. And he's always lying to people, to his parents, to the principal, and even to Cameron.
I'm sorry. There's nothing else we can do.
And yet...
They all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
To get away with that, to have a character who is so charismatic that he can get away with anything, and we, the audience, nevertheless empathize with him and are on his side, that comes down to casting more than anything else.
Because the character, unless it was done right, could be a real obnoxious brat. So that one, more than most, it was sort of obvious who we needed.
You need an actor who is that charming, that charismatic, that lovable, basically, that no matter what they do, you accept it.
I appreciate your understanding.
Don't think twice. It's understanding that makes it possible for people like us to tolerate a person like yourself.
So the third act of the film is basically following Ferris as he dashes home before his father and mother do. So the theme of the film is given to us right up front in one of the early scenes.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
That's the lesson he's trying to teach Cameron. To have some actual life experience before Ferris himself no longer has any influence over Cameron and can no longer help his friend. This also applies, in reverse, to the character of Ed Rooney, the principal, as played by Jeffrey Jones, and to his sister, Jeannie, played by Jennifer Grey. They are being taught the lesson of, let it go. You can't control a force of nature like Ferris Bueller. Stop trying to. For Ed Rooney, he's determined to expose Ferris's fraud. And he almost does, near the end of the film.
Looking for this?
But his downfall becomes the tragic arc where he can't let it go. Whereas the sister Jeannie gets a second act turning point moment, which is the meeting with Charlie Sheen's character.
What do you care if your brother ditches school?
Why should he get to ditch when everybody else has to go?
That conversation with him becomes the turning point for her to let it go.
And your problem is you.
Excuse me?
Excuse you. You ought to spend a little more time dealing with yourself, a little less time worrying about what your brother does.
And that then becomes the downfall of Rooney at the end when she ultimately helps Ferris.
Thank God you're all right. You know we've been worried sick about you.
Another interesting aspect of this film is the way that Ferris breaks the fourth wall, constantly talking to camera, to us, the audience. This is actually tricky to pull off, from an actor's point of view and from a directorial and editing point of view. If you've seen other shows like Fleabag or House of Cards, they do this very effectively. Or going back to Michael Caine's Alfie originally. If you're going to break the fourth wall like this, you need to do it right up front, in the very first scene. You need to let the audience know that this is going to be a part of the film, where the character is constantly turning to camera and referring to us directly. In the case of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it happens at the very end of the opening scene.
They bought it.
There's a particular skill to doing this effectively. Michael Caine, in fact, talks about this in his Actors Masterclass that was shot for BBC, which you'll find on YouTube. I'll link to it below.
You're just talking to your best mate, that's all. And you look straight at your best mate. It's not the theatre. It's just you talking to your best mate. You like him, and he likes you, and he's ready to listen to every word you've got to say, and he's very interested in you.
Matthew Broderick felt confident doing this because he had done this on stage.
I had done Brighton Beach Memoirs, which was a character that talked to the audience, and so did the character in Biloxi Blues. So then when I got this script, it was kind of another character who talked to the audience. In fact, I thought, oh, wow, is this going to be what I do from now on? It seemed like every part I did, I broke the fourth wall.
Never had one lesson.
It's a very theatrical device, and it can and has been done in film very effectively, like the examples I mentioned, but it's hard to do really well. You have to establish it right up front, and the actor has to get the tone and the feel just right. I think Matthew Broderick, despite his youth, but because of his stage experience, manages to do this very effectively. It also brings us into his point of view, his perspective, very closely, very intimately, and helps us empathize with him. We are in his point of view. We're with him all the way as he talks to us directly and kind of implicates us in his little crimes.
The key to faking out the parents is the clammy hands. It's a good non-specific symptom. I'm a big believer in it.
Ferris Bueller manages to do the things that we wouldn't dare do. And ultimately, he's not even doing them for himself. He's doing them for Cameron.
I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing it for you.
So at the end, when Ferris repeats the theme to us, the audience.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
That's a declaration to us to go out and live a fuller life. To try and be a bit more daring in our lives. And follow his example.
Somebody you should talk to.
If you say Ferris Bueller, you lose a testicle.
Oh, you know him.
So that's my take on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you like these kinds of videos, you know what to do. If you'd like to learn more about filmmaking, check out my book linked below. And if you'd like to support the channel and see some videos that I can't put on YouTube, consider joining my Patreon. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.